This is Bob Clarkson. Is that so? Let's consider something that probably crosses our minds frequently. Why is it that I have so much trouble trying to relax? Your life is probably full of busy, full of important busy, full of necessary busy, full of all sorts of things you must do in order to be responsible and act in a relationally wholesome way. So, at the meeting I attended just a few minutes ago of New Canaan Society here in Winston-Salem, at a local restaurant called River Birch Lodge, the topic of the daily devotion that the chaplain brought to us today was summed up in a single word: relax. Relax. There's one thing that all of us tend to have in common, and I think it's just part of our human nature, is all of the time, or much of the time, probably most of the time, we're dealing with stress. And we just want stress to go away. So if we want stress to go away, we need to change some things. Now, obviously, if you were somehow kidnapped and taken to a place where you didn't even know where you were locked in spaces that you couldn't possibly escape from, but you're given all the provisions you need to survive: food, water, shelter, heat, all of those things. For an extended period of time, after a while, except the stress of wanting to be free, you let all other stress things go because they're no longer a part of your life. You've been removed from them and you can't change them, so you can relax about them. Now, many of us would like to be independently wealthy and be able to simply have all of our needs met because we have all the money we need to survive and we don't even have to go to work. Wouldn't that be nice? I could just have everything I want, no pressure, no obligations. It's all here for the taking. Well, that's not a realistic expectation for any of us, that we're going to be independently wealthy. And even those that have wealth that's kind of beyond our comprehension, it's so great, somehow they manage to stress over the possible loss of that or something else. We tend to find something to stress about. But the only way stress could be taken away, apart from the right way, is by having everything we need and everything we want and not having to work for it. Well, that's not what life is about. And when it comes right down to it, even relaxing is meaningless if there's nothing going on that causes us to want to relax, to get away from the difficulties, the stressful things. So, for most of my life, relaxing was difficult, and stress was pretty normal, and it was sourced in three things: anxiety, worry, or fear. Anxiety is kind of an agitation about things I can't control. Worry is maybe related to, I wish I had or hadn't done these things. Or what are the consequences going to be because I get caught? And then fear, that just tends to hang around in every nook and cranny in the dark corners of my life and yours. guest speaker at the meeting this morning made the comment somewhere in his talk, "I've been unhappy with God for a long time." He was a pastor for nearly 20 years. He came out of a rough background, but he had some really strong disappointments. The most significant of which was his wife of 39 years got a brain tumor. And because the first surgery was not done correctly, it ended up taking her life within a couple of years. And so the guest speaker was saying, why does God allow this to happen to, quote, godly pastors? Why does God allow these bad things to happen to good people, to people who are not only good, they're dedicated to the service of God? Well, let's go back to the basics about this stress and worry and anxiety and fear and not being able to relax. Now, I may ask you a question and ask you if it's true or false. Now, if you say it's true, because intellectually you know it's true, but you feel like it's false, for whatever reason you feel like it's false, then to you it is false. So no matter how loudly you scream, "I trust God," if you don't feel he's trustworthy because he let something bad happen to you that you think he shouldn't have let happen, then you're not trusting God. To you, he is not trustworthy. And if he's faithful to anything, he's faithful to doing whatever he pleases, no matter how bad it hurts you. Well, that makes a pretty bad, gross assumption. That I can determine God's love for me based on how he treats me. Or rather, based on how I feel about how he treats me. That's not faith at all. That's pure T feeling, and that's how we operate. We human beings operate primarily from our emotional center. Oftentimes we wouldn't go to work today unless we felt like if we don't, we'll lose our job, and that would be really worse. So we go on. Or we're unemployed. We can't find work. And we're going to take the first thing that comes along to put some food in our mouth out of desperation or fear. And a lot of things just consistently are revealed by our emotional and therefore physical reaction to the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Now I'm going to make a bold statement here. Stress is self-inflicted. Oh no, Bob. No, that's not true. Stress, my boss puts pressure on me. My kids put pressure on me. My spouse puts pressure on me. God himself seems to put pressure on me. The stress is not internal, it's external. Well, let me say again. All stress, for me, is self-inflicted. Because I don't have faith or trust in God that he is actually God, that he actually loves me unconditionally, even when I'm doing bad things, he loves me, and that his allowances or even purposing things in my life are for my benefit always. If God isn't the perfect father, I suggest you run for cover. I suggest you dig a really deep hole and build a concrete steel reinforced bunker for yourself and get down in there to protect yourself from this untrustworthy being. Because he's obviously bigger and badder and more powerful than you or anyone else you've ever met. But why would we think God has a mean spirit? Maybe it's because we look at people as examples of God who say they have faith in God, but their faith in God is not really there. I suggest even your pastor or your favorite preacher or missionary, if they have their fist in the face of God when things go bad for them, I suggest they are far from mature spiritually, regardless of their credentials. Now we tend to think that, okay, all the people in the pews beside me are probably less mature spiritually than I am. Now, that's as natural as breathing to think that. Now, I can go to church and I can listen to the pastor and he can teach me things because he is theologically trained. He's obviously a minister of the gospel, so he has to be more mature than myself. Wrong, wrong, wrong thinking. None of our training or credentials mean anything about our spiritual maturity. Because spiritual maturity is not based on information, it's based on revelation, it's based on relationship, it's based on transformation of human selfishness into godlike selflessness. So let's go back and unpack some of this. Richard Rohr was giving a message in England about stillness, how to be quiet, how to get to God in a still manner, in a quiet, relaxed manner. And he said something to the effect that we spend most of our waking hours either regretting the things of our past or being anxious or fearful about the things that haven't happened yet that are in our future. But living in the now, the very present moment, in a way that's really useful to God, serving his purposes, not our own, is a pretty rare thing. So, anyway, we get to where we can realize that that's probably true of us, what Richard Rohr said. But here's another thing that may be helpful for your future and for your stress factor, anxiety factor, worry factor, fear factors. Emotions are actually the test of your faith. How you feel about something is really the truth that you hold about something. So if you feel that God is a bad father, or he's an austere taskmaster, or he's a father with a whip in his hand to kind of force us to stay between the lines of correct behavior, then you're missing out on the real God who loves us more than we've loved anybody on earth. His capacity to love makes us look like pissants. You can't put God in that box and it be the true and living God. But as a perfect father, he wants me to be a good son. He wants me to mature in a relationship sense and be relationally wholesome with all people. Well, so if I don't believe something is true, then it's not true for me. So put that in your pipe and smoke it a little bit. And then consider these three questions. What causes me to be anxious? What causes me to be angry? And what might the solution be to my stress? Well, the first two, the answer to them is, I think this is true of every person I've ever met. One thing that makes us angry is unmet expectations. I think things should go a certain way if I do my part, and then they don't, I get mad. I think you should act in a certain way, and you don't, I get mad. Road rage, line rage, breaking in line, all those things. When I expect things and they don't happen, I get angry. When things just keep not turning out like I'm expecting them to, I'm anxious. Oh no, is this going to work? Oh, is this going to work? Oh no, oh no. So the solution to my stress is partly in reducing or eliminating my expectations. There's one devotional that I found in the book Deeper Every Day by John Henry Allen, talks about the bars of my own prison, which keep me from the people I want to love, are my unrealistic expectations of them. I can love who I want to, but unless I'm willing to love them when they can't meet any expectations or desires that I have for them to give me something, then I can't go there. I'm in this prison, the bars of which are my expectations. So here's some things that might be helpful, but we're going to step aside from this. I'm going to read it to you real quickly, but then I'm going to talk about one writer's messages that were among the best daily devotions ever written in the book My Utmost for His Highest, written by Oswald and Biddy Chambers. He spoke the messages, she was the stenographer, and she put them into words 18 years after his death. They became available to the public. But ask yourself, do I love Jesus? Or do I want to even love Jesus? Or do I just need to love Jesus? Have I ever even heard about Jesus who loves unconditionally? Stress can occur just in relationships where we want to love somebody, but they're not lovable. Well, we say separate the sin from the sinner. Well, separate the agitating behaviors from the intrinsic and emotional and relational value of their friendship with them. Even autistic children, even ADHD, even bipolar people can contribute wonderful, tremendous, valuable things to me if I'll be in relationship with them. But I have to look past the things that they do that they can't even stop doing because it's beyond them. And then consider one other thing. The sources that inform my soul are usually pastors, people with credentials, theologians, but not as much my fellow man. Why? Notice how many older people are actually less mature than yourself. And I'm sure you know a lot of old people that are still whiny baby and you wouldn't want to follow their example. But consider this as well. Is there really anybody in the pews beside you in church that are the same age as you or younger, that you are willing to admit are more mature spiritually than you, and that you might actually be able to use them as a source of rhema, revelation from God, that will make you more mature and more trusting of this God? I'm going to read Oswald Chambers' May 23rd, and I think he really hits the nail on the head. As a matter of fact, this was a real turning point for me in my relationship with God. May 23rd, careful infidelity. Take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Matthew 6:25. Now, we often teach people, if you want to know the will of God, use your common sense first, use your information base, your knowledge and your expertise and your IQ, and then when all of that runs out and you still can't get things done, then let God finish it. That's how God works. No. Jesus sums up common sense carefulness in a disciple as infidelity. And that word is the strongest word in any language. Cheating on your most significant other. If we have received the Spirit of God, He will press through and ask, now where does God come in this relationship, this holiday, this planned event, these proceedings? until we learn to make him our first consideration. Whenever we put other things first, there is confusion. I create my own stress by creating my own confusion. I have to fix this. I have to fix that. I have to do this. I have to make sure I did this right, and so forth. Take no thought. Don't take the pressure of forethought upon yourself. It is not only wrong to worry. Worry is infidelity. It's cheating on God, saying I love you, but making love to myself. Committing adultery against God in a belief sense. Because worrying means that we do not think that God can look after the practical details of our lives, and it's never anything but the practical details that worry us. Have you ever noticed what Jesus said would choke the word he puts in? The devil? No. The cares of this world, the things that you put on yourself as a care that you need to fix. It is the little things, it is the little worries always. I will not trust where I cannot see. And that's where my infidelity or unfaithfulness to my faith in God begins. The only cure for infidelity is obedience to the Spirit. God posited in you the Spirit of Jesus when you came to be born again and receive his Spirit. Now, as Oswald puts it here, the great word of Jesus to his disciples is abandon. The Holy Spirit of God is posited in you. Abandon yourself to that Spirit, because that Spirit always will guide you into the purposes of God and not the purposes of Bob. Look at your own prayer lists. You'll find a whole lot of selfish stuff that's about Bob getting something for himself or Bob getting something good for his friends or people he may not even know. You want stress relief? Trust God. When your emotions betray that trust isn't there, get back to God and tell him you're still wanting him to help you trust, because you can't do it alone. Eventually, he will help you abandon yourself entirely, become anonymous, insignificant, almost invisible, and then he will blow your mind with fruitfulness for the kingdom of God and his purposes, and you get to participate with him in them. This is Bob Clarkson. Try that on. You'll find it to be so. Okay. It was. It was.